so many tours there, I could probably give it in my sleep, but thankfully he didn't ask me to give me tours today. I'm going to change gears here a little bit from what we've seen earlier, just to tell you a little bit about why the soybean industry is involved in aquaculture and why we've been working so hard to see this industry grow. We've heard a little bit of the domestic aquaculture numbers, and just real quickly, some of the bigger species that we're producing, and I'm focusing on feed because working for soybean farmers, obviously we were interested in selling soybeans for feed, so I'm going to focus on animals we actually give feed to. So I won't be talking about oysters or scallops or anything like that because obviously we're not going to feed them at this point a soy-based feed. So the industries in the U.S. right now that we're interested in, catfish is the biggest industry by far. We saw a high in 2003 of about 660 million pounds of production, but it's actually been declining for several reasons. But back in 2010, which is the latest year we have numbers for, it was about 470 million pounds. One of the big things that has been impacting the industry is foreign imports. We heard 85% now of our seafood is being imported. But it's also competitiveness of production. Some of the production practices being used by our catfish industry are no longer globally competitive. Another species that we're producing a lot of, and you saw a slide of in the talk earlier, is rainbow trout. Steve showed you a picture of one of those production facilities. We're a pretty big producer of rainbow trout in this country, but the current production practices we're using, which is all that flow-through technology using available water sources, will never increase. That is a limited resource, and that's what it is, and it's never going to grow. We had a peak production of rainbow trout of about 67 million pounds in 2007. And it's almost entirely coming from this one area in Idaho. I think it's about 70% of the U.S. production is coming from that one region. Okay, next slide. So let's look a little bit at Indiana. Obviously, we've seen Bell here. Indiana is a really attractive place for aquaculture just because it's kind of we're called the center of America when you look at Indianapolis. So we can get pretty much anywhere east of the Mississippi within a 12-hour drive. So it's a really good location for getting product out to the majority of the U.S. market. But at this point, we don't have much of an aquaculture industry. It's been fairly small. It's hard to tell exactly how many farms we have. It's somewhere between 80 and 100. Some farms don't need to be permitted based on our current state laws, so we don't have an accurate count of exactly how many are in this state. And we have all different kinds of production. You saw the Cadillac of production today. There's also people who have a pond in their backyard that might be a half acre that are growing something. So we've got a very diverse producer base here in the state. Obviously, you guys know about Bell Aquaculture, so I won't really focus much time on that. So why are we looking at aquaculture, and why is the soybean industry interested in domestic aquaculture? This is aquaculture growth over the last several decades. You can see it starts in the mid-'80s, and now we're up to 2007. I probably should update this, but it's a consistent trend. You can see right here, it's pretty much linear since the 90s. Aquaculture has been growing at a very steady rate. This is global aquaculture. Projections are that by the year 2030, we're going to need an additional 40 to 100 million metric tons of fish. That number doesn't mean a whole lot to you if you're like, oh, what's 40, what's 100 million metric tons? Let's think about it like this. Currently, the wild harvest, total global wild harvest is about 90 million metric tons. And they're saying in the next 20 years, we need to double that. We need maybe another 100 million tons of fish production. So that's all going to have to come from fish farming. None of that's going to come from increased harvest of the oceans. The reason this is increasing so much is because of increased population. Our global population is going to, as we all know, is going to get to about 9 billion. But also because of changes in economies in Asia. We're starting to see China become a major consumer of fish, and it's having a huge impact, as I'm sure a lot of you know, on the seafood market. Next slide, please. This is fish meal supply. We see how much more we need in terms of fish production. This red line on top is fish meal. This has been the historical primary protein source. You can see a steady decline from the mid-'80s to 2008. It's not a huge decline, but it's steadily going down when you add a trend line to that. Same thing with fish oil. This has been the primary protein source used in aqua feeds, and it is declining. So if we're going to get that 100 million metric tons of fish, we got to feed it something, and it's not going to be fish meal. Okay, next slide. And again, why are we looking at domestic aquaculture? Soybean farmers, we can just send our soybeans anywhere and feed fish. The United States is the third largest consumer of seafood in the world behind China and Japan. I mentioned a little bit earlier about the changes in the global economy. China is the #1 consumer of seafood now. And they became a net importer of seafood in 2010. Think about that for a minute there. They are a net importer of seafood. They have the largest population, they're the largest consumer, and now they're importing product. Historically, they have been exporting product. Everyone thinks, oh, I don't want to get China, I want to get Chinese seafood. But now they are importing product. So this is going to have a huge impact. Next slide, please. You can see this is global aquaculture. This right here is the whole rest of the world. This big part is Asia. We get down into those numbers. China is always the total production. 60% of global aquaculture production is coming from one country. And now they are a net importer of seafood. Next slide, please. This is a recent quote from seafoodsource.com, which I'm assuming a lot of you probably follow, but just look at the bolded parts. Chinese seafood imports increased from 3.9 billion in 2009 to 5 billion in 2010. So over 1 billion in 1 year. Chinese consumption will climb from the current 12 kilos per capita to 36 kilos by 2020. That's a triple in consumption in 10 years. This has seafood purchasers in the U.S. concerned. Where are we going to get food if we're going to continue to serve seafood in the future? This is from Darden, one of the largest seafood purchasers in the country. This was a presentation I saw them give at Boston Seafood Show. The actual sources from the NRA. Top trends for menus in 2011. Look at the bolded ones. Locally sourced meats and seafoods. Sustainability. Sustainable seafood. Farm branded ingredients. That is why we are looking at domestic aquaculture. Next slide, please.